Now, kids, it's time for the Anaglyph Jukebox. Hi, Joe. What do you have for us this week?
Well,
Pray
this week
tell.
we're going back to a figure, a notorious figure from ancient history, the Emperor Caligula. Now, many of you probably heard this name. There's been TV shows and movies and books written about his time and his reign. He's generally referred to as the Mad Emperor, but I would give a broad caveat and say much of his reputation for being mad and crazy was promoted years after his death and by his successors. It was sometimes a political tactic to make your administration look good by dumping on the previous administration. The best example of this might be this one incident. People say he was crazy. He wanted to make his horse a senator. Not quite. What he actually said was that was the story. That was that was the disinformation. What he actually said was, I could get as good advice from my horse as I could from this Senate. Although he did lavish his horse Incitatus with many luxuries that we would think are crazy, but he was the emperor of all the world, and it was his favorite horse. Two other things. He may have suffered from epilepsy. They said he suffered from the falling sickness, which was the ancient term for epilepsy. Other Roman rulers had this. Julius Caesar famously also suffered from the falling sickness. Last point, he was a young man. He was in his mid-20s when he came to power, and it was common then to take love potions and other stimulants, and these may also have affected his mind. He is said to have only slept 3 or 4 hours a night. So not quite the villain that we're told, but a complicated guy. Welcome to today's edition of the ANAGLYPH Jukebox. You never know what you'll find on the old jukebox. Let's press B31. Okay, we've got Caligula's Pleasure Ships at Lake Nemi in 3D. Mention the name today, and you'll conjure images of the most monstrous emperor of ancient Rome, a synonym for cruelty and sexual debauchery, Caligula. But not all that is told of the son of the beloved general Germanicus is true or accurate. Let's start with the fact that absolutely no one around him dared call him by that nickname, which he gained as a child accompanying his father with the Roman army. Caligula means little boots, and can't you just see the little lad strutting about proudly as the soldiers looked on and grinned? Officially, he was Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, most often called Gaius, not Caligula. And that story about how the mad emperor made his horse, Incitatus, both a senator and a priest, Suetonius, Josephus, and Dio Cassius considered this lurid 60-year-old gossip as fact, which was pleasing to the current regime when they were writing their histories. Anthony A. Barrett has written an excellent revisionist version, Caligula, The Corruption of Power, that debunks many of the wildest stories as politically motivated slander. Quote, many stories were spread about Incitatus, originating most likely from Caligula's own humorous quips. Possibly out of a perverted sense of humor, Caligula would pour libations to Incitatus's solace, health, and well-being, and claimed that he intended to co-opt him as his priest. Ancient sources are clear that the horse was never made a consul or a priest. Flash forward 1,405 years. A young cardinal named Prospero wanted to see for himself if the rumors of an ancient shipwreck at the bottom of Lake Nemi, 19 miles south of Rome, were true. He was convinced that he could make out a lattice of wooden beams in the murky depths. In 1535, Guillermo di Lorena and Francesco di Marche visited Lake Nemi with hot new tech, a diving bell. They saw something that was far bigger than what they thought possible. It took fascism and another 394 years, but in 1929, Mussolini ordered that the entire lake would be drained. They used a modern pump along with an ancient Roman cistern that reduced the water level by 65 feet. Instead of one enormous ship, they found two, built especially for Emperor Gaius. While Caligula may not have been mad, he was a spendthrift. Records show that he emptied the imperial treasury in a single year with extravagant games and spectacles. And these two floating pleasure palaces were enormously expensive. The largest, dubbed the Prima Nave, first ship, was a huge vessel, steered with oars 36 feet long. The second was a giant floating platform, complete with marble palaces, gardens, and a system of plumbing for baths. Suetonius described the sight of the ships, quote, 10 banks of oars, the poops of which blazed with jewels, filled with ample baths, galleries, and saloons, and supplied with a great variety of vines and fruit trees. Mussolini had a huge museum built in 1936 to house the wrecks so that the public could visit, but it wouldn't last. 8 years later, on the night of May 31st, 1944, Caligula's Nemi ships were burned, likely by retreating Nazis as they fled the advancing Allied troops, from one emperor's folly to another's.
It's time for Paul Hutchins' 3D Journeys. Hi, Paul. Tell us a bit about today's journey. Where are you taking us, man?
Yeah, hi, Johnny. Yeah, we're going on a 3D journey to Iceland. Iceland is an island in the North Atlantic. It's not quite within the Arctic Circle, just south of the Arctic Circle. And its capital city is Reykjavik, which is the highest, most northern capital city in the world. And we're going to see aspects of the Iceland fishing industry taken from the Reykjavik Maritime Museum, from the harbour, and also from the seafront. So if we're ready, Herb, please can we roll it?
Taking on the water, diesel and stores, laying up a while before I'm back on board. They're patching her up to go fishing again, fishing again. Welding her rudder, scrubbing her keel, scars on her belly need time to heal. In the dark, trawler man, I know all the people, there's nobody new. Soon we'll be leaving with the same old crew on the greener water, a tumbling sea. Ain't running like the good old days, time's just slipping down the old slip. As the night, I need a guiding light to keep me from foundering on the rocks. My only prayer is just to see you there at the end of my wandering back in the dark. back, but there's a loan to pay off and a few skipjack, so it's a turn around back in the southerly wind, southerly wind. Pirates coming in to steal our gold. You can count yourself lucky with a profit in the hole in the dark. When we come in, dark as the night, and I need a guide and a light to keep me from foundering on the rock. My only prayer is just to see you there at the end of my wandering back in the dark.
Well, thanks again, Paul. So now it brings us back to New York. We'll do the big circle. Lots of things happening in and around New York that Jim Harp will bring us up to date on, and I'm going to share some images that he took just this week, I think, or the week before last.
Yeah, so this first one, I just basically did a 3D conversion of the Instagram post. Matt Infante is a professional photographer in the New York area. I believe he specializes in still photography for motion picture film sets. Has a wonderful exhibit which is running all throughout April in Brooklyn at Brooklyn Film Camera, a really neat little store that sells vintage cameras and sells film. So if you need to buy some film, this is a place to go. And Matt has done an exhibit of medium format 3D slides, which is probably one of the hardest things to figure out how to exhibit. I think the next one is a shot of Brooklyn Film Camera. You can see the store itself if you want to advance. Yeah, there it is. So it's Brooklyn Film Camera. It's located at 855 Grand Street in Brooklyn. It's right down the block from the Grand Street stop in the L line. And really not hard to get to. I got there from Port Authority in less than 30 minutes. Very, very easy place to get to. And really a fascinating little store, well worth visiting, even if it didn't have this really cool exhibit in it. You can actually see the exhibit through the window. There's a bunch of viewers on the wall. We'll go inside and take a closer look at what he's got going on. And Matt has, this is a big challenge for all of us who like to do medium format 3D slides, is how do you share your work? How do you make an exhibit of them? And he's got a wonderful solution. He's got 10 3D World viewers here that he's modified. And then he also has some of his images have been taken with this very impressive twin Yashica D camera rig. So that's part of the exhibit. And I think the next one gives us a closer look at the actual viewers. And Matt has taken these 3D World Steal the Light viewers, which are really quite lovely viewers. They're very easy to fuse and pretty comfortable, I think, for most people to hold up, and has very cleverly modified them with light panels on the inside. You can actually see on the closest one the little power switch. So these are 10 slides that he took in and around the New York area, and they're all magnificent. I mean, this is really, if you're anywhere near New York or can get here in the month of April, this is just some of the best stereo photography that can exist. I mean, the
Coming from you,
images,
that's bad. That's big, Jim. Coming from you, that
you know,
makes
it's
me
good
want to go
stuff.
to
Yeah.
Brooklyn, other than the fact that I would rather eat glass. No, I
It's
love
well
Brooklyn. I
worth
love
going to
Brooklyn. What are
Brooklyn
you
for
kidding?
this, believe me. And then you can buy a roll of film, and there's also, they have used camera bags. It's really a neat little store. I think they do workshops and things there. A nice place to know about.
Yeah, all
But
kidding aside,
yeah,
I spoke to Kyle, the guy who started. Hopefully, we'll have him in next week or the week after.
yeah, it'd be great to
I
hear from
love
them
Brooklyn. I
because
love Brooklyn. I'm only kidding.
it's a neat little place. But yeah, this is just amazing. All right, so on to the next gallery show. This is another place you guys might have heard of, slightly bigger joint. This is the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they have an exhibit now which is running through July. The exhibit is called "The New Art: American Photography, 1839 through 1910." Um, so, so we can go on. I think the next slide I have shows the entrance to the exhibit, and this is the exhibit. It's across a couple of rooms, and they have this large format camera, and it's really cool. They have the ground glass on the other side, and they very cleverly lit it. So if you stand at the focus point of the camera, your face is well lit enough that someone can stand on the other side and see you upside down in the ground glass. So that
Ooh, that
alone
would make
is
a nice picture. Ooh,
oh, it's a fun picture. Yeah, yeah. We can. I highly recommend going there to do that, and make sure you bring a stereo camera because you know you get to see the image in kind of in 3D as your two eyes are seeing different perspectives from the lens going into the ground glass. So yeah, that right away is worth the trip. And the exhibit, fortunately, really prominently features stereo photography, as any good exhibit about this period would, because this was stereo photography was one of the most commercially successful forms of photography in this period. And you can see what they have here. I guess there's six different frames showing each with six stereo cards. And you can see there are viewers that you hold up by hand. I'll talk more about those later. But there are different themes in these frames, and they're all treasures. I mean, you know, you can imagine the Metropolitan Museum of Art has a decent collection of stereo cards, and just amazing cards in pristine condition. There's one frame that's all about the Civil War. Just stuff you won't see anywhere else, and really a nice chance to check them out. This is Colleen Wolpert, who I think has been on our show. Colleen designed, you can see she's holding it's a handheld stereoscope, which allows you to go up and see each of these views as if you were looking at them in an actual stereoscope. Uh, you know, I was talking earlier about how it's challenging to figure out how to present medium format 3D. It's also challenging to figure out how to present stereo cards in large quantities. And in addition to these six framed collections, they also have a couple of large cabinet tabletop stereoscopes showing specific images. But you can see there's, you know, what is it, 6x6? There's a whole bunch of really cool stereo cards you get to look at here. And this is another thing that they have. This is a Scoville Putnam stereograph camera. This is from sometime around 1880. And it's actually not that, this might even be the same camera that was in the image we had for the caption this. Certainly the same type of camera. And yeah, you can see the bellows focusing, probably had glass plates. You probably need to have a dark slide with it, big cloth to cover yourself while you were changing the plates. So yeah, these were the golden days of the cameras were made of wood and the men were made of iron back then. Although I guess the lenses were made of iron. And so I wanted to show a couple of the really cool stereo cards that they had, because there's just stuff you'll never see anywhere else, and they're in such good shape. These were my attempts to capture these using my camera phone. This is a very rare interior view of a shop that manufactures brass musical instruments. The card is unmarked, and so they speculate at the exhibit that this might have just been a one-off that was made for the shop's owner, not a commercial card. And they're guessing that the guy holding the French horn in the front is the owner of the shop. So of course we don't know that, but it just seems likely because it doesn't have any commercial markings on it. It's not being published by a company or anything like that. Just a very interesting image.
like I said before, previously, you know, when someone came with a regular camera, it's one thing, but that was a special event when a guy came with a stereo camera, right? That was like that would have been a pretty special event. you know?
And my understanding is, and it's sort of similar to you remember Sheldon with his amazing collection of commercial Viewmaster reels, that there was a certain amount of business going around in doing custom stereo photographs for, businesses or well-heeled individuals. That, we do find these custom one-off stereo cards will occasionally surface. And those are some interesting things to find. Now there's one of those frames. I showed those, frames each with 6 stereo cards. There's one of them that has just a set of Civil War stereo cards. And we all know how valuable these are. This is one that I've never seen. I believe it's one of the earliest published stereo cards from the Civil War. It's showing the fortifications of Camp Essex in Maryland. This is how the city of Baltimore was defended. This is from 1861, but there's a whole set of Civil War stereo cards in just pristine condition. Worth making the trip just to see that, because that's, each one of those things is worth thousands of dollars. They're treasures. This is another really interesting image. This is 30 silver bricks stacked in front of the bullion rooms of the Boston and Colorado Gold and Silver Smelting Company, Black Hawk, Colorado. Just a really fun little time capsule there. These look like some tough guys. I wouldn't suggest trying to steal any of those silver bars if I were you.
Yeah, I'm thinking those guys would, yeah. They look like they all got an attitude. Nobody smile. Nah, nobody yelled
Yeah.
out, I think. Maybe the
And
guy
it's
did,
just-
but yeah.
Yeah, every one of the cards that's on display is as cool as these. I just wanted to throw a few that
Yeah.
I could capture, but they're all really. And this one, this was our caption, this image. This one, I have to say, I put a lot of effort into. It wasn't behind the frame. It was actually in a stereoscope, a tabletop stereoscope. So I was able to very carefully put my camera phone right up to each lens, and I took about 6 exposures from each lens. Took the best ones, and put a lot of time in with Stereo Photomaker and with Topaz Enhancement and just cleaning it up, because I thought it was such a fascinating image. And this is showing stereo photographers. We think it's the late 1860s. The guy behind the camera, he's holding a focusing cloth, and his partner has a glass plate, and this is a portable darkroom. That's the wet plate photography process. That's how you had to do it. So we see these old images, and it's amazing what they put into making these things.
Imagine he's got his show, besides all this, you got to believe that there are flies and things, and they just have to stay focused, right?
Yeah, and they had to be very careful of light. They were exposing these wet glass plates, and they did it. All I can say is we have these amazing images from this period of time, and it's just kind of interesting to think about what these guys went through.
Yeah,
Next time you're complaining about the battery running out your Fuji W3, just think of these fellas. Because
oh, what a nuisance! It's not like exactly. It's interesting because somebody took this picture. I guess they had 2 cameras.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
wonder-
yeah. Or maybe it'd be interesting to know where they were. They were at some place maybe where there were a lot of stereo photographers, because there aren't that many shots where you really see what these guys went through in the field, for obvious reasons, that they had the one stereo camera there that was taking pictures. They weren't going to
right.
It wasn't going to be someone else to take a photo of them. So this
kinda-
one, I've never seen this image before, and I was just captivated by it.
Oh,
Was
it's
happy,
your good instincts, Jim. It's a great
Yeah.
picture. Just look
happy
on
I
the
was able to
ground.
get a capture of it.
It's fantastic. He's got the guy on the right has got the chemical bottles, right? And this guy's got a
Mhm.
bottle of something sitting there, right?
Yeah, now
the
that
photographer.
might have been a libation to help him deal with the stress of what he had to do, or it might
good
be some
point.
developing chemicals. Perhaps they used them for both purposes. Who knows?
Yeah, and that thing, I wonder what that is. Maybe it's just another lens.
Yeah,
or
I was
something to
wondering if
hold
it might
lenses.
be another set of lenses, because I was looking at that too. What is that thing? Did he have a separate lens plate? Perhaps they had different focal lengths. I don't know, and I'm sure there's people who know a lot more about the history of this type of photography than I do. But it is just fascinating to see what was going into shooting some pictures back then.
Looks like too fancy a thing to be stabilizing the tripod with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
And he's got it held up. It's not laying down. It's like sitting
Mhm.
up.
Yeah. It looks like he doesn't want to get dirt on it.
Yeah.
So I
yeah.
wonder if it is another lens plate.
The hat he didn't worry about. You know. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah. Ooh.
And this is the last thing I have to share. Mostly to make the point that it's not just stereo cards. This thing is filled with all sorts of treasures from the early days of photography. This is a daguerreotype. It was a 2D image. I converted it to 3D because I just thought it was so cool. But this was a 2D daguerreotype from the 1850s. Children's portraiture was a very big business if you were shooting daguerreotypes. And you know, sadly, one of the attractions of this was you know, illness was so much more prevalent back then that parents were encouraged, get a picture of the kid because you know this might be the only memory you have of them if they take ill. It was a much different world in the 1850s, but I just thought this was such a little treasure. But there's so many really interesting images there. There's CDVs, carte de visite, is that what that is? All the different examples of the types of printing technology that was used, salt paper printing. It's just a really fascinating exhibit. Well worth going to New York for. And yeah, if you're if you're out of town, come in and you can go to Brooklyn and then get up to the Metropolitan Museum in the same day. It's makes for a really interesting bit of viewing of 3D. But yeah, this is a great exhibit. And it was very nice to see how much how much of the exhibit they let stereoscopic imagery take. They really made it a very prominent part of what they were doing, and they did a really nice job of it. They took it seriously. So
Oh,
definitely,
man,
I commend the Metropolitan Museum.
that's a day of stereo fiend culture.
Hmm.
You know, one day of stereo fiend culture, because that's and up at the Met. How much it costs to get in the Met these days?
If you're from out of state, it's $30 is, I guess, the suggested donation. I think if you're from New York, state, I'm not sure. I think it's just, you pay what you want. I believe it's something like that. But yeah, no, I think the official, going rate. I will say that the one in Brooklyn is free. So if you average them out, it's $15 each, plus the cost of the subway. But yeah, that I think 30 is the suggested donation. And of course, the Metropolitan Museum of Art just has tons of other cool stuff. But if you just do nothing but go see this, it's well worth the cost of admission.
You know, as a kid, we used to be able to get in there. You know, because I lived. New York is kind of broken into those areas. It's 80. It's like what was it, 85th or 80 something like that. And so I lived in 89th for the past the fancy people on the east side. But yeah, you could. It was fun. You could see like a Boris Karloff movie, with the mummy. Then you can go up there and check out a mummy. So that's how I got my culture.
Mhm.
But we would sit anyway on the steps there as I got older and drink beer at night. But nonetheless, it's a convenient place right next to the lines. Thank you, Jim. That was so much fun. Thank you for taking us
Yeah,
on
well,
that journey.
thanks for giving me the time and on a very busy show. But yeah,
Oh
these are
man,
all.
yeah, that was
It's this month, so I'm glad we were able to do this now because get there in the next couple of weeks and you'll see some great stuff.
yeah. I'm definitely going to make that journey. There's no doubt about that. And I'll go, and for good old time's sake, I'll go look at a mummy or two. So a big thanks to this week's everyone who did such a great job. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating and edifying this crowd out there, and the other stereo fiends, which Martin so aptly named us. And a big thanks this week, of course, to get and our amazing crew for making this all possible: Stereo Dora, Jay Kuznets, Jim Harp, Joe Pedotto, Paul Hutchins, Herb Weiner, and you for stopping by to see what you've been missing in 3D.